Day one of NHL free agency is, for the most part, in the books, and the Colorado Avalanche had a day that I would call extremely cap-conscious, where they added a number of fringe pieces of the NHL lineup to their organization. The one non-fringe piece they added was bringing back Jonathan Drouin on a 1 year, $2.5 million deal, and that may be the most cost-efficient contract signed by any team in the league. It's extremely good business from the Avs, not just to get Jonathan Drouin back, but to get him on that number. As a 56-point player this season, to get him that cheap is just crazy. Drouin will continue to play a key role in the Avs' top six this season and continue to be probably the most cost-effective player on the team. Even with a significant raise from that $800K, he probably could have been making $4.5, maybe even $5 million had he chose to go elsewhere. Instead, he stays here in Colorado and becomes a guy who takes a significant discount to help the Avs build out their entire roster. Next up, the Avs signed Calvin De Haan to a 1 year, $800K deal. Right off the top, with a deal like that, it doesn't really matter how this goes. This was a solid shot for Colorado. De Haan is a solid defensive D who's very experienced around the league. Very easy for the Avs to drop in on their third pairing, where he should be able to play a shutdown role, both preventing zone entries at the blue line, the way the Avs like to play defense, but also adding a little bit more physicality and battle in their ability to defend in zone, which they struggle with at times. He also should provide better puck moving ability than someone like Jack Johnson on that bottom pair, even if you can't really expect very much offense out of him. All in all, if those were the only two moves the Avs made today, I still think it would have been a good day. On top of that, they add Yoel Kiviranta returning for another year at a league minimum deal. Personally, I like him more as a 13th forward. The Avs probably see him in their NHL lineup as a fourth line guy. But as long as he stays that, he's perfectly serviceable there. He's a guy who knows the Avs systems they are familiar with, and someone that has earned the coach's trust, particularly in the playoffs, someone that Bednar liked to go to. So he's a guy that'll end up in the Avs lineup and be fine for you in the fourth line. Then late in the day, the Avs added Parker Kelly to play on their fourth line as well. He's technically listed as a center in some places, but he's not. Don't take the bait on that. He plays left wing and he can't win a face-off to save his life. What Parker Kelly does do is play high-end defense at that fourth line level. Very good at shutting down teams at 5-on-5, and maybe more importantly, even better than that on the penalty kill. The Avs forward core has desperately needed some guys to join that penalty kill, and Kelly will be one of them. He's not going to give you hardly any offense at all, though, so the Avs are going to lack some scoring in their forward depth, at least on that fourth line, but it should be able to shut down teams pretty darn effectively. In Kelly's case, he signed a 2-year deal at $825K, so it seems like the Avs expect him to be that PK shutdown role guy on their fourth line for 2 years. Those are the guys that really I'm confident will have significant NHL impact for the Avs on the signings for today. There are a couple of other guys, though, including Jacob MacDonald. Obviously, MacDonald has been here before. He's not really a full-time NHLer, but he can be a part-time one, and maybe most importantly, he plays both defense and forward. So if the Avs are looking to save a little bit on the edges and fractions of the cap here, he can be that one guy who's scratched that can play both positions. Realistically, he's probably going to spend a lot of time in Loveland with the Colorado Eagles, but he can be a bit of a safety blanket scratch that the Avs can call up for road trips and things like that. He will likely get into games this year. I'm just not sure how many. Beyond that, the Avs added some extreme depth guys to their roster. That includes Calle Rosen, another guy who used to play here. There's a possibility he could get into games depending on where he falls on the defensive depth chart. Is he behind or ahead of Malinsky? Personally, I hope he's behind Malinsky as an 8 or maybe even a 9 in Colorado's system, but I'm not sure the Avs see it that way. And then they added TJ Tynan, AHL scoring depth. It would be pretty hard to see him getting to the NHL, but never say never. And lastly, the Avs add Chase Bradley as a college UFA out of UConn. Had 22 points in 30 games in college. not the type of guy to jump straight to the NHL this season. He'll likely need at least one full year in the AHL, but a good bit of depth work to add a prospect at just 22 years old, a bit younger than some of these guys that come out as college UFAs. He could be a guy to watch in Loveland, and according to my podcast partner AJ Haefele, his path should be really similar to Logan O'Connor's if things go well, and we all know how much everybody in the Avs loves Logan O'Connor. So, overall, the Avs did a good bit of business around their lineup. You can see it here. They still do have some work to do. At minimum, they need to add one defenseman, whether it's that sixth, or if Sam Malinski's that sixth, they need to add a legitimate seventh. They need to add one forward that can at least moonlight in the top six. Eventually, Landeskog or Nichushkin or both may help fill that role, but to start the season, someone's likely going to fill that. And realistically, they probably need to add a 4C as well. Wagner can fill in that role as a pinch, but he probably shouldn't be your everyday guy. So that leads two forwards and one defenseman. You also probably need a third goalie, but that won't count against the cap because he'll be in the AHL unless you call him up because of injury. And with all of the work the Avs did today, including Landeskog's contract, not including Nichushkin's contract, the Avs sit at just over $5.5 million more of cap space. That is more than enough to add the 3 spots that they need to fill, maybe even one more guy if you want to run some extra scratches. But this is a complicated situation for Colorado. They're going to have to spend some of that money. But come mid-November, things are going to get weird with Val Nichushkin's hearing coming up. I don't know how Val Nichushkin's hearing is going to play out. If the NHL doesn't clear him, his money stays off the books, and the Avs really don't even have to think about it all that much as far as the cap is concerned. But if he does come back onto the books, if the NHL clears him and his cap starts to count again, the Avs are going to have to do some stuff. Maybe that stuff is Landeskog is on LTIR and is just not playing. That would fit the entirety of Val's contract. Maybe it's that they're terminating Val's contract or trading it or buying it out. I don't know. But in the immediate, it feels like the Avs should spend this money, or at least most of this money, to fill out their roster and make it as effective as possible, and then deal with whatever comes with that situation in mid-November when they get there. Ultimately, with these question marks in the cap of Landeskog and Nichushkin hanging over their head, I really have to give Chris MacFarland a lot of credit. He made a lot of smart money moves and helped the Avs fill out that roster pretty darn effectively on day one. There's still more work to do, and ultimately the entire body of what they do will decide how we feel about the Avs this offseason. So this is far from over, but so far I feel pretty good about it.